Welcome to the Road to Retirement. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore, and I'm here with Zach Padden, our host. Zach, it's the Zach Attack today. I love it. Zach, the attorney there at Brookside, talking to us today about estate planning do's and don'ts. I'm looking forward to this topic. How have you been, Zach?
I've been good. It's been a grind here at the office lately. We're still trying to help our clients with estate planning and financial planning while going through a busy tax season this year, which it's great to be busy with tax season because it helps feed our other business lines. But it's definitely my first tax season here. So I am excited for April 15th to get here.
In the immortal words of Jefferson Starship, you're knee deep in the hoopla, is what they say. Knee
Yeah.
deep in the hoopla. Anyway, I love that. That was an album title. I just love that. But it's a perfect description of what's going on over there, right?
Yeah. And luckily, we have a great staff here, which helps us get through all this. But definitely forgot what tax season was like, transitioning back into a firm that does taxes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. They get you helping out, right? That's great. I mean,
Yeah.
you have a degree in accounting, you're an attorney, so Chris is like, buckle up, right?
Yeah, I think when I, interviewed, that was probably his favorite thing he saw was I had an accounting degree and experience in accounting because I didn't realize how much it went hand in hand here, and it's kinda nice to be able to use, both my degrees, not just one or the other.
Right, and now you've gotten, an education on financial planning as well, and so, that's what I love is the diversity and the breadth of, expertise at Brookside, so that's awesome. Well, the topic today, again, a good one. There are mistakes, that you've seen a lot of people make when it comes to planning out their estate documents. And we've talked in the past on some shows recently about the documents you need and the estate planning, some of the needs. But there are do's and don'ts. And I think there are a lot of areas with estate planning where people get tripped up, right?
Yeah, and one of them is honestly just waiting. So many people wait too long, and all of a sudden, something goes wrong health-wise, and you don't have the ability to make the documents anymore. You lose the ability to sign. You lose the ability to make your own decisions, and now your family has no documents to help you. We had a call the other
Yikes.
day, somebody wasn't able to sign anymore, and we had to tell them their only option was to go for a guardianship,
Yep.
which nobody wants to do that if you don't have to. You gotta rule your family incompetent, and if they would have signed some power of attorneys a few months earlier even, they would have been okay. And that's a really hard lesson for people to have to learn is just because you can put something off, it isn't the best thing to do always.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the mistake a lot of people make. Plus, and this is why a lot of people don't like to think about it and do put it off. I mean, procrastination is, we always hear don't procrastinate, and that's a good life lesson. But when it comes to estate planning and thinking about planning for what in the event of your own passing, nobody wants to think about that. That's one thing we've all put off, and we all have. It's human nature to not want to deal with that or say I've got plenty of time. But you know what? I mean, no one knows the day or time, and we've seen it happen over and over again, especially with celebrities because we hear about it when they pass. If they pass, unexpectedly, a lot of them don't have even wills or trusts or anything in place.
Yeah, and I mean, most of these people feel invincible. I mean,
Right.
if you told me in my 20s that I would have had like an illness where I'd be in the hospital for 2 weeks, I would have told you, yeah, right. And honestly, having documents set up gives you some peace of mind in any situation. But
Right.
most people aren't thinking about this till they near retirement. And we do see instances where people are passing away earlier. There's diseases that can get you, and it's scary, but
Mhm.
at least doing something is better than just pushing this off till a later date and saying, I don't want to think about it. And
Yeah.
hopefully people will start realizing this is a lifelong thing to do. It's not just when you're nearing the end.
Yeah. So the number one mistake you see people making is putting it off, and that's why I had my parents do it. You know, their health started to wane a bit. I'm like, we need to get this done. We need powers of attorney, medical power of attorney, um, and financial, and a trust set up. So because I saw the mistakes that were made when my grandfather passed. So
Yeah. I think the second biggest mistake we're seeing a lot of is the lack of funding. And when we say funding, what we mean is like if you have a trust, making sure those assets get to the trust without probate. So many people are like, "Oh, I have this trust set up. It's going to avoid probate. It's going to make it easy for my family." Well, they never changed beneficiaries. They never set up the house to be in the trust or transfer on death to the trust. So many little things, then all of a sudden, the money they spent to help their family avoid probate puts their family in probate. So, as much as it's great to have somebody set these up, you should make sure that you're dealing with somebody who helps you with the funding of your trust as well. Because if you're not funded, it kind of defeats half the purpose.
yeah, just legally setting up a trust and signing the documents and having them created actually does nothing unless you make sure that you're putting your assets in the trust name, right?
Yeah, and so many people think, "Oh, it's just gonna go there because I did this." And I can understand how that feels. You're like, "Oh, it's all done. I set up this trust." That's step 1. Step 2 is actually making sure that everything is done correctly, and that's one of the big things we focus on with our clients where,
Funding the trust.
yeah, we wanna make sure that it's set up correctly. Our goal was to help you with this goal. You wanted this to happen,
Yeah.
and we're making sure it's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, we had our house, put in the when we set up our trust, my wife and I, for our kids and our family, we set up a trust, and we put our house in the trust name to transfer to the trust, and we put our bank accounts in the trust name, and then all of our financial account beneficiary designations are in the
Yeah.
trust name.
And so many people, like you just brought up the bank accounts, so many people don't realize they can add a payable on death to their bank account to go where they want it to go.
Uh-huh.
Because when you set up a new like retirement account through work, they ask you who's your beneficiary.
Right.
When you go to the bank, most of the time you're not getting asked that
Oh,
question.
they're not gonna do any the bank isn't gonna help do anything. In fact, we had to explain to our bank what we wanted, and they finally the young teller there had no idea what we were even asking for, and we're like, "No, we wanna set up a beneficiary designation for our bank accounts."
Yeah, and so many people don't realize that's even an option,
Right,
which how many times we have people everything set up correctly and then we start poking holes in their plan where it's like, "Okay, have
right.
you done this?" Well, no. So that's one of those things where it's honestly a mistake people do is they don't put anything on their bank accounts. And it's so easy to do. It takes 5 minutes. You go in
Yeah.
there, you fill out a form,
You do have to
call it a
go
day.
into the bank in person and sign and fill out it's not a detailed form, it's just a one-page form, and sign it, and you're done.
Yeah, and it's a peace of mind thing. It's going to save your family time and money with going through probate, which is honestly hard for your family. They're already grieving your loss, and then all of a sudden they're having to pay money to the courts and they're having to wait to get the assets so that they can help pay for your bills, close your estate,
Yep.
and wrap this up.
Yeah, I think that's really important to understand. So, that's another one. What's another one, that you've seen people, a mistake or something they might miss?
I think something that people are missing is they do it once and then put it away.
Oh,
And
so
that
set it and forget it with their estate plan.
Yeah, because we had somebody in the other week, they had a power of attorney from 30, 40 years ago, and none of the power of attorneys were still alive. So they basically
Wow.
didn't have a document.
Right.
It was an effective document, but they're gonna try to call these people to help them, and where they're at, you can't get cell service. So
Yeah.
that's one of the big things
Yikes.
that we gotta worry about
Yeah.
is, do you still have the right people in the right places? And
Hmm.
people just put their documents away. I mean, mine's sitting in my desk drawer right over here right now, and I review it every year to make sure it's still the right people in the right places. Some point I'll probably forget about it for a year or two, but you should at least every couple years be reviewing this because life will change and you want to make sure that your documents are changing with you.
Right, and especially estate planning documents, because in your family, or with the people involved in your estate, who you're leaving your money to or things to, there are deaths, births, marriages, divorces, and all those can change how you have your trust or your will or your powers of attorney set up. Your beneficiary designations can change. If you have I learned this from you. If you have, you've talked about this before, Zach, is if you have a son or a daughter and they get married, but it's a bad situation, or the person they marry turns out to be not a good person, you might have to change some things in your estate in how you leave things to your son or daughter, right?
Yeah.
So their spouse or ex-spouse doesn't end up getting things, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the big things is you want to protect your assets that you work so hard for to go exactly where you want them to go,
Right.
not let other people make decisions for you.
Sure.
And one of the other things that just always bugs me is when people say, "Well, I can't change these documents. I did it once. It's the last will and testament." That just means it's the most recent one you've done. As long
Right.
as you're competent to make a decision, you can always be updating, you can always be amending these documents. Do I recommend updating it weekly? No, but I do recommend that over time these documents will change. And that's one thing that people just kind of get caught up on is I I made this, I need to live with it. No. You can change this anytime you want. If you don't like the person you put as your power of attorney anymore, cut him out. Put Tony Shore in there. He'd gladly be your power of attorney.
I don't know about that.
Sorry, that's
Beneficiary
a
does it.
beneficiary. That's what you
Yeah,
said.
power of attorney or executor, power of attorney, no, none of those things, because
Beneficiary, we're fine with.
beneficiary, they can use Anthony Thomas Shore, you bet. That's, they can freely use that name for any beneficiary designation. But yeah.
And one thing we do see also is people not get enough death certificates. And that's becoming less of a problem with some of the online systems. And they just need a PDF of it. But still, you don't need 30 death certificates. That's not what I'm going to tell you. But you should make sure you have at least enough death certificates that you can give one to the attorney. You can give one to the bank if you don't get it back right away, that you're not just sitting there then having to order more. So
Yeah,
look at kind
sometimes
of
credit card companies, phone companies, internet, some of them require actual copies of the death certificate, not a photocopy, but a legitimate death certificate. And I think when you make the funeral arrangements, the funeral home often orders death certificates and asks you how many you want. And you might know better, but from my experience with family members, like when my grandfather passed, um, I would say at least 5.
yeah, I
Uh,
think five's a good safe number to start
yeah,
with
yeah,
because some of the places you'll get them back right away. Some need copies, not the original, but
right.
most of the time they want that original death certificate,
Yep,
and you don't wanna then have to be like, "Well, let me go order more."
yeah.
You wanna at least have enough that you can get some things started, and that's one of those things a lot of people are just saying, "Oh, it's just me, I need, like, 1 or 2," and that's not the case usually.
Yeah, and if they have a lot of accounts or own a lot of different properties or
Yeah.
businesses or are involved in a lot of things, like my grandfather owned a farm and he leased land and to Verizon for a cell tower, and there were so many different things and entities that needed death certificates. We ended up needing a lot, like 12, I think, or more. And so, we had to go down to it was not great because we wanted to move these things along, and you'd have to go to the courthouse, order them, have the documentation. So yeah, yeah, that's a good one. People often aren't thinking about that. And after a loss, these are things that aren't, it's tough what to do after a loss, and you're not thinking about these things. But when they ask you how many do you need, it's always going to be more than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of those last things even that we were thinking about too is you should talk to your family about, like, your funeral wishes. I mean,
Ah,
I
Yeah.
don't recommend Christmas morning at breakfast saying, "Hey, I want to be cremated or I want this or that." But
No.
at some point you need to have a candid conversation with your family so that they're not sitting there spinning their wheels wondering, "Well, what did mom or dad want? What did this person want?" You want it somewhere so that either you pre-plan this or they know exactly what you want your wishes to be because you don't want them to have to make decisions and worry if it's the right one.
Right. And I think that leads to the ultimate, which maybe it's the last. I don't know if you have any more there, but it plays into what you just said, and that's communication. I think that's where people make mistakes. The number one mistake I saw that my grandfather made, who really did a great job trying to care for his family, put together a goodwill. He was a great person, but he did not, 100% English, not open communicator about finances, things like that. Held that close to the chest, close to the vest, as they say. But communication is the key. Like you say, sit down with your family and communicate these things. And here's the deal: people might think, well, I've got a will and I've got an executor. I don't need to sit down with the family and discuss this uncomfortable topic. You actually do, because if you have more than, especially if there's more than one person, if it's not just your spouse, if you have like 4 kids, like my grandfather had, he never sat down with each of them and they never discussed with him, what his wishes were and then what they wanted. Hey, I really like Aunt Mabel's China hutch that we has been in the
Mhm.
family for 100 years. I would like to get that. Is that going to be a problem, or how do we handle things like that? My grandfather, 2 of the brothers argued over who got his pickup truck. It's like the craziest, dumbest thing, right?
Yeah.
Some things you want to talk out, and explain. Here's the way I've divided it up. Here's what I'm doing. I want to make sure you're all fine with that, and have that conversation. It may be tough. You may be thinking stuff, but when it's done, everybody's going to feel better, and it's going to create. Because I saw family disharmony. I've seen it happen where families, like some families, don't speak to each other again. It breaks families apart.
It really does, and a lot of families can't recover from that because
Right.
there's then hard feelings, and
Right.
communication is key in everything, but in this case, it is probably the most important thing you can do. Now, I'm not telling you go to your kids and say, "Here's the balance of my US bank account, here's the balance in
No,
Huntington."
you don't have to tell them amounts.
No, but you should also, for your executor, if you want to be kind to them, make a list of where you deal your business. So if
Yeah.
you have accounts at Brookside here, tell them, hey, I have accounts with Brookside. I bank at Third Federal, wherever you're at,
Yeah.
just so they're aware of where to start. It used to be you could wait for paper statements to come. Well, a lot of things now come by email.
Yeah.
They may not have access to your email once you pass away,
Right.
and then you don't want them to miss accounts or miss assets that you saved and worked hard for, and then it's just sitting there in unclaimed funds years later.
Yep.
So communication is key because you don't want disharmony amongst your family, but also just for the peace of mind and ease for the rest of your family to have
Yeah.
everything done correctly.
Yeah.
And that's just something that's hard to do. It's not going to be a fun conversation by any means, but it's going to give everybody kind of ease that stuff's set up correctly. Everything's fine. And then if it's not, your kids will then be able to help you, or you can go in and adjust these documents so that it meets your wishes. Because sometimes once you hear it out loud, it doesn't match what you think's going to happen.
Right.
Just like
Yep.
if you want to leave it all to Tony Shore, but it doesn't say that. I mean, better make sure it's put there in black and white ink
Yeah.
right there on the paper.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Who should I choose as my beneficiary?" If you're struggling with that, just let me know. I got a name for you. All right. Well, Zach, great show today. I mean, we covered a lot, and I think people, it helps our listeners out there, helps with awareness. It helps me to be thinking about these things. So, you know,
Yeah, and I think it's just the more you think about it, the more you talk about it, the more it's going to be a comfortable conversation with your family.
the more
And
you
if
know.
you're just starting to think about your estate plan or you think you need a review, feel free to give us a call at 216-485-1040 or visit our website at anselmolaw.com. If you think you need more financial help, you can also give us a call at 440 886-3550. And that is for Brookside Tax, or you can schedule online at brooksidetax.com.
All right. Well, that sounds great. Thanks so much, Zach. And listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of The Road to Retirement with our host, Zach Padden.
Thank you, Tony.